So, Jeevan, thank you so much for joining us in this next edition of Fire Up. It's a series of startup founder conversations, trying to share best practices and things that work for each startup, sharing with the larger community. Every startup has some interesting experiences, and your experiences with in and around customer loyalty, both how you keep your customers and helping your customers keep their customers, because that's your product. So thank you for joining us, Jeevan.
Thank you, Ramesh, and thank you, AAA Foundation.
Please, if you just take a few minutes to quickly set the context, narrate your journey, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. So we have started Froogal initially when back then when we were doing engineering in IIIT. So we launched Froogal as a payments wallet, enabling cashless experience for students and different other consumers. So at that point of time, our target market was enabling onboarding businesses, particularly brick and mortar businesses, accepting Froogal payments from different consumers. And that's when we got into a idea of understanding the depth of these brick and mortar businesses in terms of like how they operate their business and stuff. So when we have been interacting with these businesses, we actually learned a lot of insights from them in terms of like what problems they have been facing and what problems they generally see in their operations and marketing. So while we were expanding our payments wallet in the space during demonetization time, obviously the entire payment wallet space has pretty much basically focused towards Paytm, and all the consumers were deviated to Paytm, and we had to actually think of better business model and better value add service which we can offer in Froogal. So since we have been interacting with a lot of businesses, we used to hear out a lot of problems which can actually be addressed by using any kind of technology. But at the end of the day, what intrigued us is every business, starting from small business to any large business. So we used to hear out a common business pain point, something like, hey, I want to grow my sales, but I would like to generate those revenues in a cost-effective way. So, so what we used to what we used to think over that is how we can actually help businesses in improving their revenues at the same time keeping their investments as low as possible. That's how the entire technology framework what we have built at Froogal today is working towards. So we have more than 1,000+ businesses who are using Froogal today, and so catering into like different industries, starting from F&B, retail, fashion retail, or apparel retail. You can talk about any B2C industry. So we have been catered to all those businesses.
So how did you? I mean, like these are businesses. While of course they would like to retain customers, they would like loyalty, but they're not even used to. I mean, there are no good solutions yet for them. So how did you kind of even identify the opportunity, and how did you convince them that they need such a solution?
So at a basic level, the brick and mortar business, right? They at a basic level they have a problem of how do they gather data of the customers actually walking into stores. So the problem actually starts from there. Like basically today, any business has to, if they have to really focus on giving a personalized experience for their consumers, or even give a better experience in terms of their longevity of the business. So definitely they have to understand like what kind of customers are coming to them, what kind of transactions they are doing. So initially we started the modeling that we framed the entire technology platform of Froogal to how do you basically enable technology at every business touch point where consumer interacts with the business, and collect all the data at one single place and actually understand what kind of a consumers they are actually getting. So today, if you have to actually talk about consumer retention, so every business has a different pricing point or different standards which they follow, and at the same time, industry to industry, the retention strategy what they have to implement has to change. So what we used to do is basically when we actually sign up with a business, so we actually understand what kind of a consumer data they already have, and where are they actually lacking it. So right away, starting from like how do they acquire data, and at the same time helping them with retention strategies, like enabling them with some basic loyalty programs, like where they can enable rewards for their customers, so that basically their consumers will not go to any of the competitors, or how they can enable like better experience for their consumers in terms of where they don't have to see any churn in the customers. So there are like multiple business factors where Google actually focuses on to enable better retention rate for the customers. So being a technology platform, so we used to just be a technological kind of a solution, giving as a SaaS offering for businesses initially. But later, what we understand is more than a technology offering. Today, the business owners actually, if you talk about SMB segment, today the business owners actually doesn't have right expertise on like how they have to engage with their customers or how they have to build better marketing strategies for themselves. So that is where Frugal also has started consulting them in how they have to like build up those strategies and how those strategies can integrate onto the technology platform, and how the technology platform can automate all the processes in terms of engaging and improving their retention while driving them towards customer centric strategy. So that is what we have been doing.
So, are there any models that you have evolved over the years talking to so many customers? Are there any template models? Because this is something probably most businesses don't understand, right? I mean, they of course, aspirationally, they would like to retain customers. They want customers coming back, doing more business, but they probably don't have sufficient models. So, are there any templates that you've created as models that, depending on the business, you tell them, look, these are a couple of different things you could do, and then pick one?
Right. So what we have done in our research is industry-wise, definitely the strategy. Since we understand the strategy has to be different, so what we did is we created different templates how they have to engage their customers in terms of communications, how they have to drive the next after the first purchase, how they have to drive the second purchase, and at the same time how they can convert their existing customers to become brand advocates by implementing referral programs. So at the same time, if your customer is not coming back, so what is the kind of action you can take? So in the process of consultation, basically what we do is we help them watch on our strategy template, and basically whatever the offering which they would like to put in, like how what they would like to reward if the customer is not coming in 6 months, what they would like to reward if the customer had a bad experience, or what kind of a content communication they have to do. So these all aspects is something which we standardize, and at the same time, as the business actually starts using the platform, as we consume more data onto our platform, actually we again have a module which actually analyzes and segments customers in a dynamic way, in understanding how their consumer behavior is there in terms of demographic behavior or transactional behavior point of view, or you can talk about even the loyalty behavior. So we understand all of it and try to create some personalized campaign communications to those customers, so that these guys can improvise their retention and engagement. And the best part is the platform. So more than anything, besides rewards, obviously we have to understand if the customer is actually being churned. We really need to understand basically why the customer has been being churned. So see today what we also understand as a industry standard of analysis. If you pick up any business, right, in a B2C segment, let's say for example a retail store, if you look at their last 1 year of data, as an industry standard, we see only 15 to 20% of the customers actually get retained. So the other 80% customers actually visit only once or twice in a span of 1 year, while even they have a need of the service. So there are like standard reasons like why what has been analyzed through why these 80% customers doesn't keep coming back. Is it because of competition? That's because of bad experience the customer has with the business. That might be because the customer doesn't have a right offers there. So there are like multiple factors which matters to the customer to actually come back to the business.
So I think that's an interesting point you touched upon. I mean, churn. While it's so hard to get a customer, and then the customer that you get, you lose is, I think, it's a terrible loss of opportunity. That's the easiest thing to do at some level to prevent a churn from happening. So, did you kind of identify any churn models? I mean, how do you detect that a customer is likely to leave? See, after leaving is one thing, but if you can even detect when during its, I mean, before or even as it is happening, at least the business can do something. So are there any models where you can detect when the churn is likely to happen or that even churn has happened?
As a thumb rule, in any of these retention strategies, what we actually evaluate on the consumer basis, we evaluate the customer lifetime value. So, for example, a customer walking into a store once in a month, and we understand the customer is walking in a frequency of one visit per month. We actually can do a prediction of what would be their customer lifetime value this year, next year, or whatever it is, and also understand what are their interests and preferences. So from the customer lifetime value, which we actually derive for every customer. So when consumer actually is deviating from the visit frequency or even the spend value what customer has been done in the past. So when the deviation comes, our systems actually predict those customers and immediately trigger those customers with some action items like message communications or email communications. So that's
So,
how basically we improvise the engagement of every consumer, what a business actually enrolls into our platform.
so, so one thing is to prevent a churn. I mean, detect and then see if you can stop. But once you detect, what are some of the best practices you've seen over the years to kind of keep the customer happy and either get the customer back or even not even lose the customer to begin with? Are there some strategies you come across? Of course, it may not apply to all sectors, but at least the retail sector in which you operate, what are some of the strategies that help in retaining customers or getting customers back?
Right. So, see, as I was telling about the standard industry insights, right? When a customer actually walks into a retail store for the very first time, there are like two ways you can look at the customer journey. One, the customer actually can come back and do the second purchase, maybe let's say within 3 months, or let's say he might not do the purchase. So what we do is we keep as let's say for example you're talking about a grocery business. You generally know a consumer will have a need maybe like every 30 to 45 days. Let's say, for example, you know about if you're actually procuring something in a mobile retail brand. So if you purchase a smartphone today, as an industry standard, every 1.8 years, basically, consumer will change his mobile. So basically, if you have to actually talk about retention by industry, definitely the consumer frequency, what is supposed to be there as a standard, when it is actually deviating from it, immediately, basically, we ensure, let's say, the customer is getting lapsed by more than 45 days. So we try to like engage some communications to prevent those churn models. So even the offering what you actually push to the customer in that communication will also actually matter a lot. For example, let's say you're a customer who spends an average spend of 1,000 rupees in a month. Let's say if you were given an offer with 10% off on 10,000 minimum bill, so it doesn't basically be likely to you. So that's where basically our system basically understands like which customer to be targeted with which offer or at what point of time and with through what means of communication. And the platform basically automatically designs those structure of actions, and that's how the engagement actually gets improvised.
So, like, one of the best ways to create a wow is when the customer is in the store. If you can further enhance that experience, then the customer is likely to walk out feeling extremely happy, and that's a good reason to come back because they like the experience in the store. So, do you get to know when the shopping is happening, and other things you do to create that wow?
Right. So what we basically do is, see, loyalty is not just about giving offers or rewards, right? It's also about basically understanding consumer from a point of view of experience. So what we do is basically, so there are two scenarios, in particularly in, let's say if you, for example, we are talking about a mobile retail brand. Let's say, for example, a customer walks into the store. Maybe the customer actually does a purchase. Maybe the customer actually just does a window shopping. Maybe like he didn't find the product what he's looking for and goes out of the brand. So what we do is, if the customer does a purchase, immediately we trigger a feedback questionnaire asking about like what experience he had with the staff or ambience or even the product or the service what they have procured. At the same time, since we also understand the experience from different factors, so we analyze basically what can be the next communications to the customer based on the kind of experience what is shared by the customer. So there is also other scenario where the customer just comes down and actually doesn't. I mean, they don't actually purchase because maybe like for some reason the product is not available what he's looking for. So what we do is we actually enable some digital forms within the store, in the staff hands, and so basically, for example, you are looking for some iPhone 11 Pro 256 GB mobile, and the customer walked into the store and the product is not available. So what happens is the staff actually, obviously, when the communications happens with the staff between the customer and staff. So when staff understands the product is not available, so immediately he'll enroll the details of the customer, and immediately the system will trigger a communication saying that, hey, sorry for the inconvenience, we couldn't serve you the product you're looking for. We are getting the availability for you in 2 days. Maybe this is your 500 off voucher. So this basically lets the customer actually stick to the same brand rather again going to other retail store or other again online e-commerce store and see like if the product is available there and purchase from there. So basically we evaluate based on like how the business operations are there and how the business and customer should have how the customer journeys have been there with the business in the past. So we understand everything and design those strategies.
Now, what is the see now? Like at one level, your customers have customers, right? And that's what you've been talking about. How do they retain their customers? But then your customers are your customers as well. So, are there any learnings that you transposed from the retail business to your business itself? I mean, are there few learnings that you transposed in terms of how you can manage your customers and retain them?
Right. See, when it comes to our business model, definitely we interact with customers, our customers basically who are businesses on a daily basis, because we have to talk about strategies, we have to help them with campaigns, and we have to. So what we actually understand is just by giving a technology platform and just telling the owner, I'm just telling the business owners by giving some training to how to use those modules is not going to actually help us build that loyalty with the customer. So what we actually did is we actually formed a customer success team who actually takes care of the entire KPIs. We actually target certain KPIs for every customer like whom we have. So what we do is, hey, their customer acquisition growth should be like this. Their customer retention rate growth should be like this. So we actually define these KPIs and ensure our customer success team is actually working towards that. So specific to your question, definitely we have seen a lot of brands actually trying to deliver better experience, better quality to the consumers whom they deal with. So since being a startup company and just being a technology company, definitely we haven't been concentrating on quality and service as like how do you see in any of these F&B brands, big brands, or any of these big size retail stores. So what we actually understand is quality and service matters a lot, and that's how we see there is a resonating factor like between the retail businesses and even the B2B businesses.
So at some level, you have to show. I mean, you refer to the dashboards and KPIs and such. At some level, you have to show the value you are bringing in to your customers, so that like they appreciate it more, because it may not be very obvious all the times.
Yes. So what we basically do is we concentrate. We basically communicate them that basically these are the kind of KPIs we're looking at. So we communicate a KPIs with certain numbers, and we try to actually achieve more than that. So that is what actually builds more relation between Froogal and our customers, right? So we try to achieve more than like what we actually set the expectations.
So now, before we conclude, based on your experiences, your journey as an entrepreneur, and that too, like you said, you started Froogal when you're still in college, but you still had a very rich journey in this last 3.5 years. So, one growth hack tip that you would share with other founders from your journey, that helped you, that you believe may help other startups as well? One growth hack tip that you'd like to share.
So, see, we have been in the business almost since 2.5 years, and we have been consistently growing. So we could actually, with our consistency and perseverance, definitely we have moved through different pivots, and we could still grow the business. But what I actually look at, a most important thing for any growing business to actually have certain goals, like what they want to achieve yearly, or like maybe in the future. So setting the processes in the company becomes very important. Right away, starting from day one, like your maybe your hiring process, or your onboarding process of customers, or your how do you like how do you basically manage your team, the standard SOPs. So these all becomes more important.
Very
So that
interesting. That's true. And this is something that often many startups tend to think like, I will do it when I become bigger. I mean, current customers and their happiness levels is very important for the business to grow even. So these can't wait.
Yeah, because the delegation actually becomes very important. So as founders, definitely we take up everything onto our hands, and we try to actually right away, starting from coding to sales to marketing. So definitely, when you actually don't build up those processes right away from the day one, so definitely you will see 1 year of actually journey going, and you're actually putting efforts on doing the things what other people can do. So
True. So Jeevan, thank you so much. I think it's a fantastic conversation, and I think this is, at the end of the day, this is an objective of every business, every startup, right? You want to win customers, you want to retain customers, and grow the customers. So I think while a lot of this is relating to retail industry, but I think the insights are all applicable to almost every industry at some level. So I think been very good to kind of get this from you, from your journey, and all the best with the lockdown. Hopefully, you will discover, like you said, the taking them online. You will discover new business possibilities, which is what surprisingly we are seeing. Like, we are surprised to see almost 40% of a startup, or more than 40% will be surveyed, say that they are looking at better prospects now. Business outlook is better than they had expected before the lockdown. So it was extremely heartening. I mean, at a time when we were expecting a lot of startups to shut down, most of them are looking at not most, at least half of them are looking at a better outlook. So hopefully you will also get that.
Yep. And already we are seeing through.
That's good to hear. And so all the best in the journey in these few months and also beyond. Thanks for joining us, Jeevan.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you so much.